Hi again guys, and welcome to another returning Unicorn review from the world of Forza 2, and there are a ton of Unicorn cars from that game which are not in the production world or even the concept or racing world, but more specifically the aftermarket tuning world. And this is probably one of my favourite examples of such cars in Forza 2, the ore tuning Audi S4 nicknamed the Silver Bullet. Now, this car has always reminded me of, on Gran Turismo, there's another tuned Volkswagen called the HPA Motorsports Golf, and the similarities between these two are actually uncanny. They're both silver, they're both Volkswagen AG Group vehicles, and they both even have a similar level of power. And another thing that shares between the two, really, is that they're both very impressive aftermarket tuner cars in terms of not just their straight line power and speed, but also their all-round ability. And that goes for this car in the case of this review in particular. Now, this Audi, for those who maybe haven't driven it, is quite an expensive car. It's 214 grand in the game, at least if you choose to buy it, of course. It's an A-class vehicle, 832 PI, which is pretty high, but it is one of my go-to A-class vehicles, and we'll get to why in just a second. As far as power, you're looking at 557 stock, although, of course, it's an aftermarket car anyway, so stock is relative. And you're looking at a very impressive 517 pound-feet of torque. Now, the weight isn't super low. It weighs 1,432 kilos, but, of course, it's an all-wheel drive, four-door sedan, so it's not too surprising that it weighs a little bit more. And the horsepower per tonne is just under 390, which is still pretty good, especially for a sedan. But one of the best things about this car is that it has, I would say, two stages, if you will, of appeal. The first one is that straight out of the crate, with the existing aftermarket parts, it's already a really good car. This version in the video is stock, totally untuned version, or of course it is tuned, but not by me, and it's already great. The handling is fantastic, the acceleration and the launch in particular is monstrously quick. Top end speed, not quite so much. It's good for a sedan, but it's not going to worry most supercars. But the way in which it's great in a two-stage kind of way is that, unlike some other high-performance cars in the game, you can take it even further. You can tune it more so than ore already have. And that's very cool. You can improve the power, you can drop the weight, you can improve the tyres, the downforce, and a number of other impressive things in the case of this car. So you can take it from a brilliant vehicle to an outstanding one. And although this car, back from when I used to play online on Forza 2, I didn't used to see it online that much. It wasn't a super popular vehicle to use, but I definitely saw some people, myself included, using it, such as, for instance, in the A-Class, and for that, it's very good. You can quite easily round off its performance to the top of the A-Class, and it will be a good all-rounder. And that is the best thing about this car. It's not like a Lingenfelter or a Goldstrand Corvette or a Hennessy Viper or a number of others, in that it's more of a straight-line machine with okay handling. But at the same time, it's not something more like a Tom's MR2 or an RE Amimaya RX-7 where it's more of a track car. That's the great thing about this Audi. It's both. It's great in a straight line, but it also has really good handling. The handling is tail-happy enough to get around tight corners with just a quick flick of the e-brake, but at the same time, it has a ton of grip. The all-wheel drive really helps you, not just through corners, but as I said earlier, with that ballistic launch off the line. It makes an excellent drag car, drift car, and even around something like a technical circuit, it's a highly competitive machine. But beyond that, you can also use it for stuff like autocross or gymkhana if you wanted to as well. And this is a car which I really do think it's a shame that it wasn't continued in the Forza franchise, because even if it only went as far as, say, Forza 3 or Forza 4, it would have still been a really useful car. Now, of course, it would still be useful now, but less so now, I would say, in a funny kind of way, because there are so many cars now in terms of the range of vehicle classes on, say, Forza 5, 6 and 7 in particular, that it might get lost in the shuffle. Whereas back then, cars like this stood out much more. Vehicles like the Cupra GT, the ME412, the Proto Motors Spira, and a number of others stood out a lot more, because many of the cars on Forza back then were very good, but also they were fairly expected. You had a lot of cars which you would expect and hope would be in the game, and the ones that actually stood out and surprised you were a little bit more far between than they are now. So that is for me why this one very quickly stood out. And I actually went into playing this game, Forza 2, right after playing Gran Turismo 4. I swapped franchises for a couple of years. And that, I think, as well, immediately drew my attention to this vehicle in particular because of using that HPA Performance Volkswagen Golf on Gran Turismo 4. It was one of the best aftermarket cars in the game, and you could even start the game with it if you had some money from a previous game file. Likewise on this game, it wasn't as easy to get as that car, but it had those striking similarities, that same level of extreme high performance tuning, but with all of the handling, the all-wheel drive advantages, and just the fantastic driver feedback with something like a Golf R32, or in the case of this one, an Audi S4. Because let's face it, the Audi S4 is already a great performance car, even stock. So a 550 horsepower version, yeah, of course it's going to be good, and this one is excellent. So if you do get the opportunity to go back to Forza 2 and pick up this car, if you've never driven it before, I think you will be pleasantly surprised, and if you have, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts down in the comments, because it's definitely a unicorn as far as Forza 2 goes, and it's a great one. It's one of my favourite cars in the game. It may even be my second favourite car in the game, second only to the Seat Cupra GT. So, brilliant vehicle in pretty much every way, which is also kind of rare. Usually cars do have a downside, whereas this one doesn't really. But overall, that's it for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.